Hello and welcome to episode 285 of the Casual Try Hard podcast. I'm Brian,
And I'm James.
and we had an evergreen episode last week, so we're gonna skip talking about the Pro Tour. Something Natto's real good.
Something. Lots of cheaters, from what I heard.
There was one, and then there was like a clickbaity YouTube video of like did the winner of the tournament cheat?
Oh, okay. Maybe I just saw the clickbait title.
I didn't like go watch it. I'm like, I don't have time for this in my life.
Yeah.
But what's it called? There was someone who did get DQ'd.
Yeah.
For Tarmogoyf math.
They'll get the best of us though. Was it actual cheating or was it just like bad math?
They did an investigation and they kind of decided that it seemed like he did it intentionally.
Gotcha.
So it was another Goyf, and his opponent bolted it, and then in response he played Not Dead After All. I think it's the one that puts a roll on it, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And so with Not Dead After All in the graveyard, it was a 3/4 Tarmogoyf.
So it didn't.
So the bolt wouldn't. But he put a wicked roll on it.
And it only got the roll if it died?
Yeah, because it gets the roll if it comes back.
Yeah.
It like enters the battlefield with a wicked roll, I do believe. So they did an investigation and thought that person had cheated. But I think it's about it. I mean, I think that like, is it super easy to cheat when you've got to like have a pile of tokens that you like run in a Shuko in the middle of your board?
Right.
Where you're like putting your token on the Shuko and being like 1 trigger, and then moving it to the other side, 2 triggers. Oh, make a bunch more insects. Do it again. Yeah. So we're not going to talk about that. There you go. There's your high level
your recap
analysis. Yes, is Nadu was 5 of the top 8 decks, 4 out of 4 of the semifinals or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the finals and the winner. So
I think Hogak got banned for less, didn't it?
I think.
Yeah.
And like Hogak wasn't as miserable.
Right.
Like Hogak, you just had big monster go grr, and then you died.
Well, the deck actually had interesting lines of play, and I think Nadu is just the same line.
Yeah, exactly. Get Nadu, get Shuku.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, not fun. So we're gonna talk about what I think could be a major shakeup to the future of Standard.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna let you drive a little bit, and maybe okay. I'll steer, but you can drive because I really don't. I didn't hear anything about this while I was gone, and I didn't find a whole lot of information out there about it. So.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about Magic Foundations.
Yep.
But yeah. So if you have ideas for the show, spoilers are coming at us fast and furious. We have Bloomborough stuff, so like hopefully next week we'll talk about mechanics. But then like the whole set's gonna be done.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna have a chance to do limited breakdown.
We might not, just because like, I mean, again, we it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
That's true. We can do what we want.
If we want to wait an extra week to talk about the cards, yeah, yeah, exactly. We haven't sold out totally yet.
I mean, there's nobody's buying, so.
If you'd like to buy, please reach out to us on social media: Facebook, Discord, Twitter, email.
Yep.
You can email pictures of a check with lots of zeros. Like, maybe we'll be interested.
Spoiler alert: very interested.
Very interested. All the links are in the description below. Come in, say hey. You can help program the podcast, or you can own it. Just
the choice is yours. One of those two things, no other options.
No other options. You can program the show, or you could really program the show.
That's right. You get to own the show, or you get to own James and Brian.
Yeah, there we go.
If you're looking to support the show instead of buying it outright, there's two ways you can do that. The first is with a TCG player affiliate link, CasualTryHard.com/TCG. Surf on over there. That'll bring you to TCG player. Anything you purchase after using that link will help to support the show. It helps us out, and we would really appreciate it. If you want to support us more directly, Patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG is how you can do that. You can ship a couple bucks in, goes directly to us, and you get access to our pre-show, which is about another hour-ish of content out of us every week. And you also get access to show notes, so you get a sneak peek about what the show is going to be about for that week. So if you like either of those, or if you just want to support us because you like the show, directly at patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. And if you sign up for you can chip in as many dollars as you want to. If the number's big enough, you could own the show.
You could.
Yep.
Yes. All right.
So what's Foundations?
Okay, so Foundations is yet another new Magic the Gathering product.
Okay.
And it is going to be released this winter, basically. So after Duskmourn.
Duskmourn is September?
I think so, yes. So
we got July, September, and then
November 15th this comes out.
Oh, okay.
And so it is a
hang on one second before this. Sure. Is this that weird slot where we had the back-to-back Innistrads, how they smushed them together? Is this the same timing?
Yeah, it's because we did Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow we're both in the fall before, because then we had double feature and then Neon Dynasty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of that same spot.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's fine. No. So it comes out on November 15th. And this is a standard set.
Mm-hmm.
But it is unique in that they are promising that when this set comes out, it will be legal in standard at least until 2029.
Holy. So 5 years? Oh, wait, what do you mean at least?
It says at least until 2029.
So they're not sure how long it's going to be legal for?
Correct.
Okay, that's weird.
So we're going to have a set in standard for 5 years.
Okay.
This set will be a mixture of reprints and new cards.
So kind of like core sets used to have the same cards with different names. Like every core set, you'd have your cancel variant and your whatever, and so this is just going to be those staple cards.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it is giving them a place to put cards that do not particularly fit in any of the sets that they have, from a flavor or theme perspective.
I got
so
you. I mean, that kind of makes sense because a lot of the current sets are hyper focused on world building.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Bloomborough that we just got spoilers for today is hyper focused on the fact that it's the animal plane or whatever.
Yeah, and we talked about a whole bunch of that in the pre-show.
We did.
Yeah, if you want to get some of that. Yeah. Also, we usually do TV show names, but I will say that when we talk about Bloomborough, we should name that episode Animal Planet.
Sure. Perfect.
Or Battle for the Planet of the Animals or something. But yeah, so Outlaws of Thunkster Junction was they're trying to do a lot of top-down set design.
Yeah.
I think, right? Is it right where they're like,
They
we
pick a
have a
theme and then build
theme,
from there.
and then we're trying to design from that.
Yeah.
I think with differing levels of success, let's say, but right, like it might be hard to put a pithing needle in a set like that.
Right.
And maybe they look at standard and go, man, I really wish we had a pithing needle, but like I can't have an otter holding a pithing needle.
Right.
Right. It's too cute. Or like a pithing needle doesn't make sense in, you know, the Stranger Things world.
Right.
Which is clearly Duskmorn.
Clearly.
Right. So, right, like that doesn't make any sense. So let's have this other place that we can maybe put this and maybe put some cards that like thematically don't make sense other places that might be fun or interesting or whatever. So yeah, so they're making this set that is legal for 5 years. And like it kind of I don't know if they said how big the set is. Like I'm looking at kind of the announcement, it doesn't say. I think it's probably like the size of a normal set, so probably 200 or 300 cards.
You think?
I would guess. Like maybe it could be bigger.
Well, I mean, this is a place where they could get away with like a giant set. You know what I mean? It's going to be in print for 5 years. Like these cards are going to be actually worthless because it's going to be in print for 5 years. They could make the set 400 or 500 cards and not have it change anything. And like if you look back historically, like sets used to be bigger.
Yes,
like there were like 330 card sets, and we don't get those anymore.
No, and like so like there's no like indication. Like I assume this would be draftable, but
I have no idea.
Like it, yeah, you wouldn't want to draft it for 5 years.
No, definitely not.
Right? Like it just seems like so what cards are they putting in here? So some of these cards are funny because they are like cards that in the last 10 years we were told were too good for standard.
Yeah.
And now they're going to be in standard for 5 years.
Yeah.
Or 4.5. So first we have Llanowar Elves. The OG.
Yep. We were definitely told many times that 1 mana mana dorks were too good for standard. At common.
Right? Yes. I mean, just like for constructed, right? Like, it doesn't matter like where it was.
Well, I mean,
right?
we've had like conditional ones, like Gilded Goose.
But and then Day of Judgment, which is 2 white Shrill creatures.
Yeah.
So, if you're old like us, there was a time where we were. It was after Supreme Verdict, right? Supreme Verdict kind of took over the world.
Yep.
And it was like, you know what? 4 mana Wraths are too good. So Wraths went to 5 or 6. And in the last like 3 or 4 years, they've been like, what? Because I guess there was one in.
Yeah, Kaya's whatever that was like black, white.
And then there was the one in Theros that was like 2 white, but with like a Theros Beyond Death.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
with a was it Shatter the Sky?
Yeah. Yep.
And they got to draw a card if they had a creature that was power 4 or greater. And then to populate was 2 white, draw a card if you control a multicolored creature or something.
Yeah.
So they were like trying to put like a drawback on them. And they've just given up.
Yep. Nope. Just Day of Judgment.
Just Day of Judgment. As much Day of Judgment as you can Day of Judgment. Day of Judgment. And then there are new cards.
Well, there's one more reprint.
Oh, there's one more reprint. I'm sorry.
And it's kind of a weird one because like it's something that has been in standard not that long ago and also doesn't really fit in the mold that we just discussed. Like both Llanowar Elves and Day of Judgment are like staples that would be in a format, like things that are generally healthy for a format to have that, you know, the nuts and bolts that make the decks tick. But there's one more card that does not fit into that category, and it's Omniscience. So why do you think Omniscience is here?
I don't know.
It seems like a
Like
really weird card to seed in.
like the Timmies like it. Like I don't know.
Well, right, but that's not what this set's for. This set is for, from my understanding, in the like literally 5 sentences that were in this announcement article. This set is for putting staples into a standard set and for teaching people magic.
Yes.
And I don't think Omniscience fits either of those.
Yeah. I would say Omnisciences are currently like $8.
Might want to get off of them.
I might want to sell my 2019 core set copies.
Yep.
Because for the love of God.
Yep.
How cheap are these going to be? Yeah, so it is. I think it is a card that you and I think about Omniscience as like it's a thing you show and tell in.
Right.
It's a thing that you like cheat into play.
Well, you definitely like you're not paying 10 mana for it.
But if you're like a Timmy, right? Like this is like a big splashy thing to like ramp into, though it makes no sense.
Right.
Right? Like maybe, but I agree. For like, it's not a staple, and it's not a good thing to teach someone to do.
Right.
Because by the time you get to 10 mana, you have nothing to cast.
Or you're dead.
Or you're dead. Exactly. Yeah. Like my hand is empty, play Omniscience, go.
Yeah.
What did you do? Nothing.
Right.
So we have these like three reprints that like 2 of them are like best in slot in standard.
Absolutely.
And then
arguably
like,
best in slot, not just in standard.
I mean, Day of Judgment and Pioneer is a big deal.
So's mana accelerants.
Yeah, well, Land of Roar Elves is already in Pioneer.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, you meant like printing Day of Judgment into Pioneer.
Into Pioneer.
I just meant there's staples in more formats than just standard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then Omniscience is just kind of the oddball.
Yeah.
But like, as we've seen, like, they've got to print worthless mythics. It makes them feel something.
Well, like that's what's even weirder though. Is this not a worthless mythic? Like it has a home.
But it's $8.
Yeah.
But it's going to go to like nothing.
Yeah.
And then, but it could also be that like they have to put like a chase card and maybe like Omniscience in their mind is like,
sure,
not a terrible mythic price wise right now.
Yeah.
So like people get excited. And then there are 2 new cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's Anthem of Champions, which is green-white for an enchantment. Increase user control, get +1/+1. So it's Crusade. Was Crusade only white creatures?
Crusade is no longer a card.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It is. It is redacted.
Yeah.
But yeah, like white, give everything +1/+1.
Yeah.
Has been a card, and then it became 1 white because white was too good.
Yep.
So now it's green-white, which arguably is easier to cast sometimes, depending on your deck.
Sure.
You will notice if you were looking at these online, this has the Nyx frame.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, all enchantments going forward will have the Nyx frame.
Yeah, the Omniscience does also.
Yes, so they're gonna give them the Nyx frame to make them easy to tell what they are because reading is no longer fundamental.
No, I mean, I'm all right with that. Like, artifacts have their own frame. Like, colored artifacts have their own frame.
Yeah.
So, I'm all right with that.
And then we have a black cat.
Yeah.
Not black cat. What does this one do?
This is 9 lives familiar. 1 black for a 1/1 cat. It enters the battlefield with... I'm sorry. It just enters with 8 revival counters on it if you cast it. And when it dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return it to battlefield with 1 fewer revival counter on it at the beginning of the next end step.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back 8 times.
Someone pointed out that this is very good with the Ozolith.
Oh.
Because when it
dies... You get infinite cat, or infinite counters.
Yeah, because when it dies...
Yeah.
Like, well, you could just move all the counters onto the Ozolith.
Yeah.
And then put them on anything.
Well, sure, but revival counters only matter for this.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah, but I guess you do get infinite or something.
It just never dies.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is I think this set has some like long-term implications for standard.
Is that a joke because it's going to be in standard for 5 years? I'm sorry, at least 5 years.
At least 5 years. No, but it could be. It
Yeah.
could be. Um, so like I think there's some pros and cons. Uh, First and foremost, like I think the ship has 100% sailed on like the idea of like a metagame that shifts week to week
Oh
in
yeah.
standard, right? Like if you have a set that's there for like ever,
Mhm.
right? It's gonna be really hard to like. So now standard sets are around for 3 years.
Mhm.
Plus, we stuck this set in that's gonna be there for 4 or 5 years,
Right.
right? Minimum. Like standard's gonna look really, really similar year over year.
Well, I mean, the counter argument to that is that we kind of already have this. It's just baked into every standard set. And I think
What do you mean?
like that was one of the I think one of the points that you were getting at when I cut you off during the pre-show. Um, but we already had like these cards are just don't need to take up space in a set anymore.
Yeah, so like I think like one of the pros of this is now you are freeing up design space within sets, right? You
Yeah.
don't like if you like there is value to putting a white wrath in limited,
Mhm.
right? Like a wrath every so often in limited like makes you think about it, whatever, yada yada. Like changes the limited environment some.
Mhm.
But um right, like now like we're at a point where we have so many sets legal that there are like Saffron Olive played like a 40 Wrath deck or something.
Yeah.
Like just play in like so like there's just you're taking up this like rare white slot
Right.
to make sure there is a white 4 mana Wrath in standard
Mhm.
for the control decks for whatever. And now you don't have to. Like it's
Right.
just always in standard.
Well, I didn't mean as much for like the rares, but like for the commons and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to put Grasp of Darkness and Doomblade and insert whatever 2 mana black conditional kill spell here. You put it in this set and then you're good.
Yeah, but like those have a place in limited. Right? It's
Mm,
like the
I'd
uncommon like
I'd
black removal
argue that
spell.
the 2 mana ones don't. I
You
think
think
like
they're just too good?
yeah, I think like the 3 mana ones are a little bit better for limited
Okay.
than just
Or
like
like the conditional like 1 mana ones like
yeah,
Neg 2 or something. Okay.
yep.
Um
And then like you because there's only ever going to be one of those in a deck, right? Like maybe
yeah,
you
fair.
run some number of them in a sideboard to like switch out whatever condition it's going to be based
Mm-hmm.
on the metagame, but you're not running 4 copies of Doomblade, 4 copies of Grasp of Darkness, 4 copies of
Ultimate price.
yeah.
Go
They're
for the throat. Yeah.
kind of like you said with the 40 Wraths deck. There's no reason for there to be like there doesn't need to be that many of them. You put the
Yeah.
whatever the one
If
that you want in standard in this set, and then you're good.
yeah, because it does feel like sometimes that like each set they're like trying to just find
Yeah.
like much like we have the counter spell with
Set mechanic.
Set mechanic that
Yep.
there's like the removal spell with
Yep.
answer to set mechanic or
Yep.
like somehow related to the set theme and maybe we don't need that. Maybe it's 3 mana because it's better for limited.
Mhm.
Um but like on the flip side, like so many like modern magic cards are like snowbally.
Yeah.
That like they play their 2-drop and you can't answer it.
Sure.
And then they like draw 8 cards and then you play your like 3 mana removal spell and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But I can see that. I can see it. But like I think it does free up some design space.
Mhm.
And I do think that there is a push with the extending how long normal sets are in standard.
Mhm.
And now this set there's a focus on bringing the price of standard down. So I don't know if in like the, various um uh what are they, surveys that like we have participated in
Yeah.
For Wizards, if it has come out that like people are just like standard is too damn high.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how much of that information is accurate or relevant. Like
Yeah.
if the only place they're getting, and I'm sure they're not, like the people have way too much money on the line to rely on one source of information, but if the only place they're getting information from is those surveys, and those surveys go out to everybody, even that like don't play the relevant formats, like
Hmm.
they're not going to be invested in the answer. If you got
Yeah.
some, some sweaty commander nerd in the corners like, hey, yeah, I don't want to play standard because I don't want to buy a standard deck. Well, it's not that the price is too high, it's that you spent $3,000 on your commander deck and you're
You want to
not
play
going to
that?
spend $700 on a modern deck, or you're not going to spend $400 on a standard deck because you got $2,000 in triple sleeve whatever.
Taking turns.
Sure.
Uh, um. So like this does like these cards are gonna be dirt cheap because they're gonna be in print forever.
Yeah.
And they're going to like uh the idea is they would form a base of your collection.
Mhm.
And your standard decks.
Yep.
That like so if in theory if you had all of these cards, you would have some percentage of like every standard deck
Makes
for
sense.
4 or 5 years. So that's gonna like drive the price down,
Mhm.
which like for accessibility is a positive.
Sure.
Um,
I mean, we kind of already had this at one point, though.
Corsets.
Well, a step beyond core sets, we had deck builder toolkits.
Okay, like those weren't like those didn't really have a lot of cards that were like useful, did they? Like they didn't have like Day of Judgment level cards.
No, they had staples. Like
Mm-hmm.
you got. I'm trying to think back. It's been a long time since I opened one, but there was like seeded packs of cards, like for each color. So you got like a base of commons and uncommons for whatever archetype, and then there were like booster packs in them, I think,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's kind of the same. You're right. There's no like Day of Judgment level cards in there unless you get lucky and crack one. But um, as far as, having cards in your collection to form the basis of your decks, like we had that and it didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, so like it feels like they're really focused on people are price sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do something to lower the price of standard, which I think kind of goes to like one of the cons is it turns standard to some degree into like almost like a non-rotating format,
Yeah.
right? Like or at least a very stale
Mm.
format,
Yeah.
right? Like I know that like, people are like current standards really good. Like, it's one of the best standards we've had in a really long time. But like then when you watch content, you're just like, oh, it's a Rafine deck again.
Yeah.
Right? Like like it feels like Rafine has been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
I know Shieldred wouldn't have rotated, I think now anyway, but like it feels like you've seen Shieldred a lot. Though I know it's not being played as much as it was.
So
But like
I got a question for you real quick.
sure.
You mentioned a minute ago that, or it was more than a minute ago, but that you think this is going to open up design space.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they're going to combat that staleness problem by using some of that new design space to have like more parasitic decks?
I mean they could like, like Bloomberg we're looking through definitely like, cares about food.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or
like maybe there's
tribes.
maybe
It's very
yeah,
tribal. I'm sorry, typal.
typal.
Yeah.
Crusade doesn't exist, and neither do tribes. Like
Right.
we've
Yeah.
just said two taboo words, or I have at least.
Don't cancel me, bro.
don't cancel me, wizards. They don't even know we're here yet,
No.
except for when Mark Rosewater listens.
He just comes for the Coke jokes.
He does. Wow.
Gives you wings.
Gives you more than wings. But like they could so like so Bloomborough like cares about food, and then we also have like Wilds of Eldraine that also like was a food set.
Yeah.
So like maybe it would allow them to like, put like more cards that like care about mechanics from previous sets where they won't have to devote as hard.
Yeah.
But
like
I
doing that would also make, well, maybe not make, but would help like the format go through cycles as well.
It could hopefully. But it just feels like you're gonna have this situation where like you're gonna see Day of Judgment out of every control deck for like 4 years.
Yeah, potentially
right?
longer.
At least 4 years.
Potentially forever.
Potentially forever. So like you're gonna have the situation where like you're just gonna see the same cards over and over and over again. And there was part of Standard was like cards went away.
Right.
And we're just like slowly extending how long cards are around.
Mm-hmm.
And like it doesn't feel like Standard of old, and it doesn't feel like it will be an interesting format in the long run.
Yeah.
And then another kind of like downside is like, is this sustainable in terms of if every Magic player, right, got the cards they wanted from this set?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna keep printing this set. Who's buying these packs in 4 years?
Well, like that's a whole different kettle of fish, can of worms, whatever euphemism that you want to use there. Like they don't have to. Just because it's legal and Standard doesn't mean it has to be in print.
Fair, okay.
It just has to be available. So if they, they run a bunch of this off and it's sitting on game store shelves, like they're not going to be ordering it because it's sitting on the shelf, which means the distributor's not going to order it, which means Wizards isn't going to print it.
Okay. I was more along the lines of, right, like they make a product and like if Day of Judgment is the best 4-mana Wrath in Standard,
mm-hmm.
right, like, and there's not a new 4-mana Wrath, like control players aren't going to want to buy that.
Right.
So like buy the new stuff, right? So like, hey, I have the like core of my Standard deck. I don't care about this next release.
I gotcha.
Like, does this so there is the like who's buying Magic Foundations in 3 or 4 years, and
right.
maybe it doesn't matter because they like just stopped printing it after 2.5 years because no one bought it,
right?
Or like people stopped buying it, they like bought it initially and then stopped, right? But then like, do we run into a situation where to move the next set and the next set, like, hey, like, we've got to print something that makes the person who's got Day of Judgment in their deck want to buy this set. So do we have to print, like, destroy all creatures you draw a card? Right?
Well,
do we have to power creep Standard?
I don't think you necessarily have to do that, though, because that just kind of spits in the face of what you're trying to do. I think you would focus on the cards around it. Like maybe you don't bother printing a Wrath in your new set because you already have the best Wrath that you want in Standard. Maybe you focus on whatever your finisher is going to be, or whatever your permission package is going to be, or your spot removal, or your card draw, or whatever. Like there's a lot of other things around the Wrath that go into a control deck that you just can get people excited for.
But like, I don't know, it almost feels like there's like could be like an internal arms race with Wizards where it's like, hey, why aren't these sets selling as well? Oh, it's because Magic Foundations makes it so like people don't need to buy as many cards.
That could be.
So now we've got to pioneer Horizons this thing.
Yeah.
And like power creep it to like crank the knob to 11.
Yeah.
So like, is Wizards going to be happy with, you know, this and maybe like depressing the sales of future sets
Mm-hmm.
unless they like power creep it? Or like, are we in a world where like there's less less focus on like, are we selling sets more because of like trying to sell sets more because of flavor now?
I mean, that certainly seems that way. The
Like,
a lot of the, like we were talking about, top down design, a lot of the sets are like hyper flavorful where they didn't used to be. Like think back to Theros or Innistrad. Like yes, they were definitely top down, they were definitely flavorful. But compare each of those sets to Bloomborough or Duskmourn or Outlaws. Like those sets are so entrenched with the flavor that, well, I guess we don't know about Bloomborough or Duskmourn yet, but like Outlaws was so deep in the flavor, lost in its own sauce, that like you couldn't even make sense of it. The cards were just, I don't know. Like there's
yeah.
definitely a difference between the old top down design and the new top down design. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think like the new stuff is a lot more flavorful than it was, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So like maybe it doesn't matter and we're just like trying to move things.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Now, I had another thought that occurred to me. Is you said you know, you're going at this through the lens of standard,
mhm,
and like your point about how this might suppress the sale of like regular releases. Um,
mhm.
like what if it doesn't, or what if they don't care? Like standard is already kind of a lost cause and not really driving sales anyway. And sure, this is supposed to, you know, give it a step up, but like what if the overall plan isn't to revitalize standard, it's to give new players a place to play until they pick up their first commander deck or their first pioneer deck or their first modern deck, and then like all of these other sets are meant to support those formats.
Yeah, I mean I could see where like, you know, locally for us for years like draft was like the entry point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you don't need a collection, whatever. Like if this set makes standard super cheap,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could be in a situation where like people are able to spend $40 and put together a like functional standard deck, and then
Right.
that is kind of their entry point into playing Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like right now, there's not like a good onboarding point,
Right.
right? It's like here's this commander deck, which is 99 unique cards. It doesn't really ever play out the same way.
Right.
And there's all these weird interlocking pieces that like support like
200 mechanics in there, and you got to know what all of
yeah.
them do, and half of them are rares, so there's no reminder text. And
And then like and welcome to a 1 to 2 hour game experience. And you're
right.
just like, oh my god. Right. And like draft there is like a learning curve too.
Absolutely, you're learning two
Uh
games at once.
yeah. And so like there is not like, and then Pioneer and Modern kind of have the commander problem, but are also more expensive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I can see where they're like, well, we can make standard like a cheap entry point to get people like in the store.
Yeah.
Then like they could do something. We could do something to like kind of turn people over and get them into other things. Like yeah, like make this the cheap point to
Well,
get
I mean, it,
in.
it makes sense from like a business point of view. Also, we're having more and more sets released every year, and do we have more regular releases? No, right?
No, there's still just the four. Oh,
But
is this a way to like sneak a fifth like
well, that's not where I maybe, but that's not where I was going. What I meant was it has to be way more profitable for Wizards to sell $8 packs instead of $4 packs. So if you onboard a bunch of players with an artificially suppressed price point into standard via foundation sets, and then they graduate into Pioneer, Modern, Commander, whatever, where there's like way more profitable products to push onto them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that makes you more money for the same effort.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just wait until we get Pioneer Horizons. That way they got one of those premier sets for every format.
I would hope that we would pioneer Pioneer Masters before we Pioneer Horizons.
I wouldn't count on it.
Um, but yeah, uh, like that would just be awful. But because like, where's the line? Like, where is the
There's
line
no
in
line.
terms of like, but like in terms of like power level for a set like that, like, because like Modern Horizons like breaks Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, Pioneer Horizons would, in theory, break Modern and Legacy would break 3 formats.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, like, 2.
Oh, that's the grand plan. They're going to make everything rotate but standard.
Standard is the eternal format.
That's right. Modern, Legacy, and Pioneer all rotate 3 times a year. Standard rotates once every 5 years.
There we go. So it was interesting. Saffron Olive like did a video this week about like Modern Horizons and how it rotates like Modern, because like, you know, Modern wasn't monetized enough. So how can we monetize it? Well, we'll do Modern Horizons and it rotates things, yada yada yada. But he brought up a point that we brought up, that like they were running out of reprint equity.
Mm-hmm.
So the Horizon sets just let them create reprint equity.
Absolutely.
And it's like, exactly.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, we got to put Ragavan in this set. Oh, we're going to put all the pitch elementals.
Right.
And to help sell Modern Horizons 3 as if it needed help.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just like, it's like good to see that he caught up. We came up with this a couple years ago.
Once in a while, we got a decent idea.
Once in a while, we come up with something good.
Yep.
So, like, I just worry that, like, and again, maybe it's just, like, dumb. That, like, right? Like, I guess Standard is going to be, like, no longer not the place for anything competitive. Right? Like, you know, like, if they miss with this set,
mm-hmm.
like, kind of at all, right? And, like, there are, like, 4 or 5 cards that are, like, really good or fit together and make a deck.
Mm-hmm. You're just stuck
and then
with
you're
it for
like
5 years.
Yeah, and you're like in the energy situation where you're like playing, you know, the same like core of energy cards, and then you just like put a Glory Bringer and a different removal spell in.
Yeah.
I'm playing Glory Bringer and a Braid from the new set.
Yeah.
But I'm still playing the same core, like, you know, 30 cards, 28 cards, right? Like, if there's like a Lanamore Elf and then like a good 3-drop and like a good removal spell, right? And it's like, well, like, I'm just gonna play like Elf into this thing.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the point, though.
But like, it does, like, it fundamentally changes what standard had been in the past, which is,
well, I think that's the point, though.
I guess, but like, you know, I guess Standard has been broken, and they're like grasping at straws at how to fix it.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But no one plays Standard,
right?
And like, I think that the reason they've come to is it is too expensive, so people are not willing to make the investment. But I don't know if that's 100% the case, right? Like, how cheap does Standard have to be for people to just go like, whatever, like, I'll spend $20 on a deck, and then at that point, though, like, no one opens the packs.
I mean, isn't that what Pauper is, though?
It is to some degree, but like, presumably Popper has more unique and like powerful gameplay
Oh, sure.
than standard. So I think that is like the appeal, is it being like Legacy Light.
Yeah, I mean, it's also not a Wizards format, but
Yeah, like it's Legacy on a budget as
yeah.
opposed to, you know, actually playing like Legacy.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. It just like it's turning standard into that thing where that you love, that like, hey, like there's a new puzzle to figure out,
Yeah.
and it just seems like while they are giving you like more puzzle pieces,
Hmm.
there
They're
are some
building
of
the
the
borders
puzzle.
for you already.
Yeah, but yeah, and like, but there are also like, when there's a puzzle piece that is like an outlier,
Hmm.
that like then everything is built around it.
Yeah.
And that can only happen so many times before people are just like, I don't want to, like, there's a fine line between standards doing interesting things
Hmm.
and like, there are 3 decks
Yeah.
and they haven't changed in a year and a half.
Yeah. I
Right.
also
And like,
wonder, like, if this is going to have an opposite effect, where like you might get newer players that are interested in standard because it's cheap and it's a place for them to play and learn and grow or whatever. But like, I wonder if any actual seasoned players are going to continue to play Magic if, or not Magic, but standard, if the decks are only 60 or $70 or $100. You know what I mean?
I mean, they might. I'm not worried about it. Like, I don't know, like the decks are too cheap for me, right? More along the lines of like, it's very similar repetitive gameplay.
Yeah.
Just kind of over and over and over, and people get sick of that. Where like if you're like a new player, like, that might be like kind of like Modern was
Hmm.
back in the day, where it was like comfortable, where you're like, oh, like I'm playing Tron and they're playing Affinity, I lose.
Yeah.
Like I know these play patterns,
Yeah.
right? Where now it's like, and then Standard was a place that like you had to like keep up with things and like learn
Yeah. You had
something
to keep up with
new.
the meta because it changed every week.
Yeah, where now it's gonna just be like, yep, these are the 4 decks, and find one that you like. And I mean, it does kind of go back to what we talked about, like playing a deck to get good. Like
Hmm.
this would allow you to, in some ways, like play a deck to get good.
Sure.
And so we're looking at this. I just thought of something when you said, "What if it has the opposite effect?" What if the foundations cards are cheap,
Hmm.
but then like it drives up the price of the non-foundations cards?
Yeah, maybe.
Right, like if you get more people into standard, like standard, there's already is like a problem of like the cards that are playable in like a given set
Yeah.
are like really
Astronomical.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
You're
like
doubling the demand and not the supply.
yeah, you open a pack and you're just like hoping for one of those cards, or
Yeah.
you're just like done. So like let me look at like where's it at? uh, I'm trying to find like uh your prices on. Right, so like if you look at like Outlaws, um, for the Mythics, it's there's Bristly Bill is $25. Um, Gold Vein Hydra is 10. Terror of the Peaks is 18. Tiny Bones is 10. Nothing else is over $8
Yeah.
at a Mythic, and most of them are like under $2. And then like for the rares, like some of the lands, like Inspiring Vantage is, well, no, Insatiable Avarice is $4. Three Steps Ahead is $5. But you have like expensive Flickshot Shoff is like 10. So you have like, but like most of the cards are like, super cheap.
Hmm.
Like not even like on the Goldfish list. And like, are you gonna run in a situation where like, you know, the Bristly Bills of the world go to like $50?
Yeah. Shield
Because
Drift.
everyone wants go to shielded prices,
Yeah.
and then like it makes it harder for people to play. I was gonna look since I'm up here. Dominaria United with Shieldred,
Yeah.
still $78.
Jeez.
Still $78. Jeez, oh man.
I mean, I don't know how accurate this is. I'm just looking at the standard metagame on Goldfish,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I don't know how much more affordable than this you want your decks to be. Like the most expensive deck is Domain at 500.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, you have Mono Red Aggro's $90. Demir Midrange is 420. Boros Convoke is 240. Orzhov Midrange is 380. Gruul Aggro is 150. Teamer Lands is 200. Like, that seems like a pretty reasonable price for like a standard format.
Yeah, I think that like for you and I, like that looks like that what standard decks have cost over the years.
But I've certainly played in standard formats where the decks were a lot more expensive than that.
Yes, agreed. But like if you're a new player and you're like spend $400 and you can use this deck for 6 months.
Don't forget about inflation though. $400 it used to be $200.
True. But the problem is most people's paycheck didn't go from $50,000 to $100,000 in that time.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's actually even more.
Yeah.
Right. But like you know, hey, like you can play this deck for 6 months for $400 or like a year.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's kind of a big barrier to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, you know, I guess Wizards doesn't, they do and they don't. They like what they don't care what the secondary market value is, right? Like they make their money selling packs,
right,
and secret layers, which do kind of depend on the secondary market, right? But like if every standard deck was $80,
mm-hmm.
right, that just like
takes all the demand away.
Puts Star City out of business.
Yeah.
Right, but doesn't put Wizards out of business.
Well, Wizards, I mean, it kind of does though.
Packs. Kinda like
because again, it gets in kind of a weird area now that they're selling direct through Amazon, but like game stores have to buy packs. Like Wizards doesn't sell a pallet of booster boxes to you. And actually, Wizards doesn't sell a pallet of booster boxes to a game store. It's all through distributors. So if game stores aren't ordering from the distributors aren't going to order from Wizards, and Wizards isn't going to make any money. Like, boxes have to be opened in order for Wizards to make money at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we run into like the Ikoria box issue.
Yeah.
Right, when I showed up to buy my boxes of Ikoria, and they were like, the EV on the box was less than the box.
Right.
Right, so like, you know, and we've been running into this for a while with other sets of like, hey, like as the game store, I've got to sell this box for $90 to keep my lights on.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon selling it for $85.
Right.
And if I crack the box, the EV is like $70.
Yeah.
So I can't crack the box. Right. Like ours is like Foundations, like, you know, again, like in year 4. Like, what is the value of like a Foundations box? And like it, I don't know. I guess it can be illegal and standard and not be in print, but it seems weird to like this be your new player product to some degree, right? You're on board.
So this was actually a question I was going to ask you earlier and forgot about, so I'm going to ask you now. Do we know how this is going to be sold?
Not from the saying article is strong. Not from the
5 sentences.
Not from the blurb, Or so, like anything I've seen about it.
I guess just because it's a set doesn't mean it has to be sold in booster boxes.
Could it be sold as like precons?
Either precons or like a deck builder toolkit or jumpstart, or you know what I mean? They've kind of broken what it means to be a set anymore now that you have special guest, bonus slot, the list, whatever. You end up with, 600 cards in a set by the time you take everything into account. Like that's not what a set used to be. The set used to be the 260-ish cards, and that was it. If that doesn't mean anything anymore, what's saying that this has to be sold in play boosters for drafting? Why couldn't it be sold in precons or like
box sets or something?
Yeah, like an LCG where you buy a box and it has 4 copies of every card.
They've not ever done anything like that.
Well, Wizards has, but not in Magic.
What did they do it for?
Wasn't Netrunner a WotC game at one point?
I don't know. Maybe.
Thought it was. Maybe I'm wrong.
Boop. Yeah, which is the Coast Netrunner trading card game for sale? This is an eBay listing. Who owns the rights to Net? The game license is owned by WotC. So there you go.
Netrunner is an LCG. So
Okay.
When a new set comes out, it's not sold in booster packs. It's sold in the new set. When you buy the new expansion, it's everything from that set. You just get it all.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like such a big departure from what Wizards has done.
Well, sure, but the game's barely recognizable compared to what it was 6 years ago.
This is very true. This is very, very true. So why would this be any different?
Yeah. And if they're not going to do some big departure, I don't understand how this is different from a core set that they've tried and failed to do multiple times now.
Yeah, just like a super core set, doesn't address the lack of sales of core sets.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you had your question earlier about, is this draftable? Maybe they don't care if it's draftable. Yeah.
Yeah, they might not care. We're just putting cards in the set that we care about for constructed.
Yeah, maybe we don't even get play boosters. Maybe it is just not draftable.
Yeah, it could be. Which would be weird, but so is as I'm looking at here, Tamio field researcher as a bunny.
Yeah.
It's also weird.
Or I think somebody posted up in Discord earlier, Nissa is a frog.
Yes, I saw that one. Frog Nissa.
Yeah.
Hypnotoad Nissa. You will obey the Hypnotoad.
Right.
Yeah,
that would solve some of the problems too, though. If you don't, it is almost assuredly more expensive to produce a booster box of play boosters than it is to produce, I don't even know what you'd call it, but a battle box with just every card. Because you don't have to worry about extra packaging for the booster packs. You don't have to worry about collating or randomizing the cards. You just cut the sheets and there you go.
Yep, stick you in a box, send them out the door.
Yep.
And
that would also, I would imagine, control your demand a lot more. So you would have a lot more fine control over what's actually printed.
Yeah, because you know exactly how many cards went out the door.
Right.
But then that eliminates mythic, rare, uncommon, and common, right?
Sure.
I don't know. It feels like they're too built on that.
If you're not drafting it, what does the rarity matter?
Like their whole market is like their whole business model is built on FOMO,
Well,
right?
sure,
Like,
but that's where secret layers come in. Like
mm,
maybe this just isn't the product for FOMO. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they're planning on having this legal in standard, which means quote in print or available for 5 years. Like I think FOMO goes out the window when you know a set's going to be on the shelf for 5 years.
yeah, yeah. Like you can just kind of get it whenever.
Yeah, I mean, even if they did, I'm not saying they will, and I don't think they should. But even if they did like collector boosters, what do you think a collector booster of this is going to be worth after year 4? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yes,
Like there just is no FOMO.
fair.
And like that I really think is the only point for rarity. I mean, look at I think we've made the joke before about rarity in commander deck or commander precons, right? Where like the
Yeah,
rarity
it
just
doesn't
doesn't matter
exist.
because everything's the same rarity. And same with I think we did a whole episode on this when mystery boosters was a thing, right? Where the
Maybe,
rarities
yeah.
just kind of went out the window because like everything the way it was collated, like the commons and the rares had basically the same rarity.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's but it's really change. It's gonna change like how standard feels,
Sure.
and maybe it'll bring new people in.
Mm-hmm.
But as if we haven't like pushed a bunch of people away,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like this is going to do like even more to like push people like out the door of
I
like standard.
I don't know if that's true. I don't think there's anybody left to push out the door.
I mean, very true. Like it could just be whatever. Uh,
I honestly don't think it matters. I don't think there's anybody like playing standard that plays standard because they enjoy it. They play standard either because it's the only thing that happens at their game store, which I kind of doubt lately, or they're playing standard because there's like a specific thing that they want to do with that standard environment. I don't think
mhm.
like the me I don't think exists anymore. The person that it's just their preferred format. I don't
Yeah,
I don't think they're playing standard anymore.
agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it might be just a thing that like there isn't anyone of kind of the old guard
Mm-hmm.
to like push out of the format because
Yeah,
you've already pushed them all out, and
maybe
now you're
maybe that
just
was
trying.
the 3D chess move.
Yeah, but like maybe again, maybe we need to look at it as just like we've got to figure out a way to use standard for player acquisition. It has not been
Absolutely.
acquiring players, so let's try this and see if it can acquire players.
Mm-hmm. I 100% think
Um,
that's it. Like I don't if that's not your use case for standard, I don't think standard has a reason to exist anymore.
mhm. No, like that's true. I also wondered in right like could you like keep the Magic Foundation's name and like we talked about like you could do mystery boosters with like just changing cards
Mm-hmm.
and could you like add cards or take cards out of the foundation like as it like went on like or would it have to be like Magic Foundations 2
Yeah.
we kept 50 cards and we put in an extra 200 and
Yeah,
then
I was
Magic
going to say
Foundations 3.
like that would be tough if your goal is to just leave it in standard forever because you'd end
Mhm.
up with some period at some point with overlapping foundation sets.
Yeah, but yeah, you could maybe just do like 1, 2, and 3 or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing saying they couldn't like add a card, but I don't think you could take one out very easily unless you
Yeah,
just made it
fair.
obsolete or crusaded it. Doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
we have decided that this card does not
Yep.
exist.
Remove it from the catalog.
All right. With all that, I think we got a show.
Yeah, I think we got a show.
So if you have ideas, I think we're going to be talking about Bloomborough mechanics next week. But if you have any other ideas or things you want us to talk about, you can reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Discord, Twitter, email. All those links are in the description. let us know what you are interested in.
Yeah. Also, if you have any cards in particular that you want talked about in Bloomborough, that episode will be coming up in the not too distant future as well. So you can shoot those over to us, and we'll make sure to include them in our set review. If you want to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do it. The first is with our TCG player affiliate link, CasualTryHard.com/TCG. I have been told that I'm not allowed to skip this anymore.
Oh man, I've seen that.
So follow that link on over to TCG player and do whatever shopping you're going to do. You know you're going to purchase cards anyway. You might as well support us at the same time. Anything you purchase, we will get a portion of that helps keep the lights on over here. We would really appreciate that. If you want to support us more directly, patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG is where you can do that. Chip a couple bucks in. The donation amount is completely up to you because all of the tiers are exactly the same. For your donation, you get access to our pre-show. It's about another hour-ish of content out of us every week. We are old, and technology doesn't like us sometimes, so we need to test our equipment, make sure it works every week because things change and break, and we don't always know how to fix them on the fly. Also, we don't see each other nearly as much as we used to, so we'd like to catch up a little bit in the pre-show. And we record it and pipe it directly into your ear holes with no editing or planning at all. If that sounds good to you, like I said, patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Sign up, chip in, support the show. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. With that, we'll catch you on the internet.
We'll catch you on the internets.